welcome to the ATX Gear Show. I'm Keny.
And I'm Wes.
And we're going to do a two-part series. We're going to compare, which we've already done. We've already reviewed the JHS Muffuletta. You can check it out. We'll put a link somewhere around up there.
And we were really big fans of it.
JHS Muffuletta, really great pedal. Is a really great pedal. But we're going to compare it to the Russian Green Muff, and we're going to use the Russian Muff setting on the Muffuletta.
Talk a little bit more about this. So the reason we decided to compare the JHS to a modern Big Muff, we're going to do two. We're going to compare it to a Russian Green Big Muff and then the new
Ram's Head
Big Muff.
That'll
and the reason we chose new ones is because we figured, although the JHS pedal emulates those older pedals, or is a copy of them rather, we assume that because it's made from new parts and materials, it's probably closer to the reissue Ram's Head and Russian Big Muff than it is to an original. I don't even know how close the new reissue muffs from Electro-Harmonics are to the original. So we thought it'd be great to compare JHS to the new reissues. Seems like kind of comparing apples to apples because they're made in the same era, same parts.
And I mean, one is trying to emulate new school parts to one that's been reissued to sound like the old school one. I mean, this is going to be the closest that we could probably get to emulating these two pedals.
So I tried these out. I happened upon the Russian Green Muff when I was at a place here in town. And I just thought, yeah, I'd try it out. And then I was like, I got to order the Ram's Head Big Muff. And why don't we go ahead and get into it? We'll let you play first. We'll click back and forth. We've got it all set up with a switcher here from Loop Master, so we can go back and forth without having to press two buttons at once and see how it sounds through your setup.
Okay.
Then we'll move over and I'll play it through mine. And then I'll play it in context with a couple of other pedals that I use regularly, just to hear how it sounds with a few other things added to it. Going to use a Boss DD7 in analog mode and my modded CS3 Boss compression sustainer, which is an all the time thing on my board because it sounds like a tube amp in a pedal basically, and gets a lot of really good, not overly compressed, but super tubey sounding saturated compression.
So basically, just to show you guys, I mean, we'll do the pedals naked and then we'll add some effects that you probably use as well as pretty common effects, a compressor and a delay pedal.
Because we like to hear how things sound in context.
Exactly.
You know, you got to hear how it sounds with some other things that you might use normally to hear. How does that pedal actually going to sound in my rig?
Exactly.
So let's do that.
All right, cool.
Slaznam. All right, give me the dry tone. quick noise test. No play. All right. All right, clean tone.
Damn it.
Dirty tone. Context real quick.
All right, cool.
So tell me what you thought.
All right, man. So it was fun. I think this whole thing that we're doing, comparing pedals, is a fun thing to do. As far as the JHS versus this Russian green muff and using the Russian setting of the JHS Muffuletta, through my personal rig, man, I have my rigged out in such a way that muff fuzz pedals just, they don't seem, in my opinion, don't sound as good as like a fuzz face style fuzz pedal. I think that the fuzz face style has more cut through on my particular mix, where this kind of muddies up everything.
My clean volume on this amp is probably a little lower than your volume you had on your amp, but when I click these muffs on the same volume that you had them on, right, it just goes rah, rah, rah. And it's huge
so
sounding.
Badass.
It just sounds bigger on my amp for some reason. Well, I mean, not for some reason. There are amps, some amps that are made to be gain amps. There's some amps that are made to be pedal amps. I bought these Vibroluxes because I wanted something that wasn't quite like a twin that kind of took pedals, but kind of didn't.
Right.
I wanted something that was a little flatter that took pedals really well. And obviously the Vibrolux takes pedals super well because these things put into it sounds more beefy than going into your amp, which is a thicker, beefier bass amp. But I don't know what happens. It works really well with this circuit over here.
It gets muddy in mine where I bought Marshall, man, because I want a Marshall tone. I want that drive sound. And I bought the DSL series because it has that high gain Marshall sound. And that's what I like. And I'll push that. I'll push it with the Rad or use that fuzz face fuzz to push the gain section of that amp, and it sounds great. Muff style fuzzes, dude, just make it sound muddy.
All right, so let's get to the muffs themselves.
Okay.
So comparing the two, we're on the JHS Russian setting compared to the Reissue Russian Green Big Muff.
In my opinion, the JHS pedal sounds good. It sounds great. It doesn't sound as good as the Green Russian Muff at all. It sounds, and through your amp, man, it just sounds badass. Adds a thickness where the JHS sounds clean. It's a cleaner sound.
Yeah, and it's important to note that, well, a couple of things. Number one, to get on my amp, on his too, but more on my amp, to get the volume of the Russian Big Muff, when I was playing at home earlier today, I have the Russian set volume at about 1030. Everything else is the same as the JHS. To get that volume out of the JHS, you've got to have it at around 3 o'clock. So it requires a lot more volume on the JHS to get that same level of volume that you would get out of the Russian. What we also noticed was that, and this is something on JHS, a good point, was that it is a less noisy pedal than the Russian Muff.
Considerably.
If you A/B back and forth, which we showed earlier, the white noise generated from the Russian Big Muff is significantly higher than the JHS Muff. Now, Josh at JHS has said that he builds a lot of times gates into his pedals, and that may be why it's quieter, but that may also be why we've decided that it's more lifeless than the Russian. When you click between the two, they both sound good. JHS did a great job of recreating the distortion profile and sound of the Big Muff, but you go back and forth between them, it's very clear that one sounds alive, the Russian, and one sounds
not so much so.
On those feedback parts where we were going back and forth between, you could just, there's no better example of that. I would be sitting there feeding back, and then you'd click from one to the other, and I'd just be like, oh, where'd it go? It's like I went flaccid in the middle of the song, you know? It's like I was running along with a Rager, and the next thing you know, it went down. So the Russian Big Muff is like Viagra, and the JHS is like Yellow Jackets from the gas station.
But with that being said, the JHS pedal has 6 different Muff style pedals, which we're going to show on the next episode. We're going to do the JHS, the same whole comparison. We're going to do it against the Ram's Head and use the Ram's Head setting of the JHS. JHS, though, this Muffuletta pedal, to be so many pedals within that pedal sounds freaking awesome. Really does. Would I go and buy all 6 of those pedals? Absolutely not. If you want all those 6 of those pedals in a pedal, there you go.
But here's an interesting thing that you, the viewer, should note that I noted today when I started trying these. There's not even that much of a difference between the Ram's Head and the Russian, between the Big Muffs themselves. Now, maybe back in the day, when all of those pedals were made with whatever materials were available and they were all a little bit different, there was a big difference between one or the other. But I A/B'd today at my house the Russian Big Muff that we have here with the Ram's Head Big Muff that we're going to do on the next show. And there wasn't that big of a difference. I think the EQ was a little bit different. The Russian Big Muff has a little more mids. And the other one, the Ram's Head, has a little more highs and sounds a little better for lead versus like chugging kind of rhythm. But they're very close. So to put 6 of them in one pedal, as JHS did, isn't that unbelievable if he's emulating the new pedals because they're so close anyways. Right. But like we said, there's just something. When I played the JHS for the first time, I had never played a Muff other than the Little Big Muff. It's the only one I ever played. And I thought the JHS was a really great pedal. I was like, man, this is a great sound. But I never used it live because in the back of my mind, I did know that some frequencies get lost on the JHS pedal. And I have a feeling if you do play it live, you'll just get buried in the mix. Whereas the Russian Big Muff has a lot more mids and it really punches itself out there and it just has so much more livelihood.
It does.
Right? So it's all about what you want. Do you want a whole bunch of options in one pedal for $200? Or do you want one pedal that does one thing really well for $100? You probably couldn't go wrong with either of them. But my opinion on this review today is that I really like the Russian Big Muff. As a result of playing that, I bought the Ram's Head. And I will buy a Russian one as well because I want both of those.
Gotcha.
So
there you go.
Yeah, that's it.
So, yeah, see us next week, and we'll do the Ram's Head compared to the JHS Ram's Head setting on the Muffuletta.
And leave in the comments your experience with these two pedals.
Yeah, what you think.
If you've tried both of them, or if you've tried an old Russian Big Muff and a green Big Muff, which one you think, where are we at on this? What sounds better? Let us know. We're interested to hear your thoughts. Really interested to hear that. Stay tuned for a new video every week because we're half drunk,
half stoned,
but fully reviewed.